Hello and welcome to the walkthrough for my portfolio level, the Ivy Falls Incident. As we get started here, the player goes under this tunnel made by the destruction of this wrecked parking lot. They're introduced to the situation ahead of them and this officer who for now sends tutorial messages via this UI. First about the jump and the climbing, which we use here, and then with the sprint, which becomes necessary for crossing these larger gaps. So far, crossing this parking lot is acting as a basic movement tutorial. But this platform begins to drop into the red mist, amping up the tension and leaving the player at a point of no return as they dash across the gap here. And then introducing another mechanic as they have to use their telekinesis powers to open this door. We have a moment of relative stillness, allowing the player to absorb the damage even within the facility caused by the creature, which is the main antagonist of this level. And then we frame and guide the player to this event. The player faces the fury of these enemies in a relatively simple first combat with a clear orb there to use to fight them. The officer seems to have known these people, amping up the power of the antagonist as it seems to be able to turn even our allies against us, and tutorializing the double jump to make it up to this elevator. Now, until this point, the player has seen sort of the destruction wrought by the creature, but not yet been exposed to it. And this is the moment where we have the big reveal. We trap the player to sort of emphasize the drama of this moment as they descend, and the officer sends these increasingly frantic messages. He is no longer acting as this simple UI thing, but actually a part of the story now, as he sends us this very evil-sounding message at the end here. We go through this simple lobby to contrast with the scale and the drama of what we saw before being trapped in this room and receiving the tutorial for the final mechanic as we have to use our melee attack to open up the door and open a way forward. Here's a relatively quiet space for the player, a bit of a scripted event on that screen if one looks at it, mostly orienting in the space compared to the big orb with the creature. Seeing that there's a key card required for that way forward, we go to the only way that's open here. Down in this basement is the first combat really meant to challenge the player. The enemies spawn as the player enters the space and is relatively exposed, so that they can't attack from up on that balcony in pure safety, like some early playtesters did. I also split up the spawns such that the three that run out from the doorway don't come out until one has defeated the first pack of enemies, and that helped orient more players towards this room where the key card is in. On the way back, I spawned 2 additional enemies for a relatively simple combat in the same space to make the most of it and also have an attack from this different angle the player didn't get to earlier, but also to send the tension upwards as we move into the end of the second act here, to let the player know, that they are not safe anywhere. And as they've acquired the key card, they can go through this door. This space in here provides a new view of the creature, reminding us of our goal, and then challenges the player on the platforming front, just to keep those mechanics and skills up and in the player's mind before they're used again, giving us a view of the goal and suggesting to the player that they'll be doing this platforming along the edge of this big room before this event where they're dropped right down into the final fight. Now we're at sort of our peak of tension, so I introduced the toughest combat in the whole game, which is this sort of series of smaller combat spaces with each their own individual spawns, providing the player with cover and a more limited series of enemies to keep in mind. showing off the destructible glass mechanic there that allows the player to change the battlefield as they go on. And these spawns bring them out to a more exposed space. As the final fight here puts them in real danger, they have to dispatch these enemies quickly and show mastery, or they'll take a lot of damage. This event of these discs coming down and the light changing from red to white lets players know the situation has changed. The bridge has opened up, and they can finally move towards the antagonist and the final act. On their way to get there, they are, however, brought to this. The crumbling bridge serves as this big, difficult platforming challenge to challenge players' mastery on that axis before bringing them towards the end of the level. I've then sort of handcrafted this event of slowly pulling out this door, changing up the telekinesis mechanic to bring a certain unease to players, but also heighten the cinematic aspects of that moment. As this happens, they're brought to this very different childlike world in strong contrast to the lab we were in before, and introduced to this childlike avatar representing the level's antagonist, who simply wants to play ball with the player. Now, they can stay here and do that for as long as they want. It'll continue for as long as they continue. But if they intend to progress, they have to try and pull off that door on the little house contained within here in the orb. And the only way to do so is to use the telekinesis mechanic, toss the ball far away from the child, and then pull off the door while it's running towards us. That brings about this moment as the antagonist, feeling betrayed, says playtime is over and the world falls apart. We can enter the house, find the heart of the creature, and pull it out in one more of these handcrafted events. The officer is then able to get in contact with us once more, and the player has completed their mission, resolving the Ivy Falls incident. But at what cost? Thank you very much for watching.